Speaking of which, this is Donald Trump speaking with Ainsley Earhardt. And what I love about this is that if this principle was followed, they're pretty much, well, let's just stick close to home for Donald Trump. All of the 5 families in New York would be safely intact if flipping, as he calls it, was illegal. I've said before, right, exactly. They would have disrupted the Gambinos, great guys. And I've said this before, that in spite of, Trump would not like the culture of where this comes from. But if ever there was, instead of a Make America Great Again hat,
stop snitching.
Throw on a stop snitching hat, my man. All right, let's go. Yeah.
If you're saying the payments, if they're not illegal, then why would he use that information for a plea deal?
Because he makes a better deal when he uses me, like everybody else. And one of the reasons I respect Paul Manafort so much is he went through that trial. They make up stories. People make up stories. This whole thing about flipping, they call it. I know all about flipping. For 30, 40 years, I've been watching flippers. Everything's wonderful, and then they get 10 years in jail, and they flip on whoever the next highest one is, or as high as you can go. It almost ought to be outlawed. It's not fair. Because if somebody's going to spend 5 years like Michael Cohen, or 10 years or 15 years in jail because of a taxi cab industry, because he defrauded some bank, the last 2 were the tiny ones. Campaign violations are considered not a big deal, frankly. But if somebody defrauded a bank and he's going to get 10 years in jail or 20 years in jail, but if you can say something bad about Donald Trump and you'll go down to 2 years or 3 years, which is the deal he made, in all fairness to him, most people are going to do that. And I've seen it many times. I've had many friends involved in this stuff. It's called flipping, and it almost ought to be illegal. You get 10 years in jail, but if you say bad things about somebody, in other words, make up stories, if you don't know, make up stories. They just make up lies. Alan Dershowitz said, compose, right? They make up lies. I've seen it many times. They make up things, and now they go from 10 years to they're a national hero. They have a statue erected in their honor. It's not a fair thing, but that's why he did it.
She can't even believe
that is incredible. I mean, there's literally, there's nothing to add to that. He's just saying, all those cases that have brought down and have conducted any organized crime syndicate in the world, from Enron to the Bonanno family to the Cali drug cartel, all should be illegal. Because what they do is they get somebody who's mid-level in the organization, and then they say you're going to go to jail, and then they flip, which is so unethical.
Can I just ask you why, in your opinion?
There was literally,
why?
I just translated what he said.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about Trump. There's nothing to add to that. That isn't even like Lindsey Graham's the classic, what's really going on here is I want a goddamn war. Then you give a little poetic license. Trump just literally on national television. Yeah, well, that's a big problem in general, is people testifying from criminal organizations. It's super unethical.
And that's why does he employ that when he could just say it's lies? They're making it up. Why does he have to go on this long editorial? Because
he had a serious point to make.
I know. It's like
he literally thinks he's a mob boss right now, I think he's flexing those muscles.
Yeah.
Right.
That's his model of leadership. Because
all he had to do was say they're making it up. It's not true. But he goes on this whole thing about the whole idea of flipping should be outlawed.
He's like, first of all, Joey wasn't even part of the crew.
That's right.
Secondly, he's a liar and a fabricator. That's what they call it.
That's not fair.
And thirdly, it's totally unfair. And the idea that the FBI would roll up on him like that and ask for testimony, I mean, frankly, the whole thing should be illegal.
I mean, you do a blood oath, you shake a guy's hand.
You shake a guy's hand, you burn a picture of the Virgin Mary. Nobody takes oaths seriously anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Meanwhile, look at what's going on in Chicago. The whole thing's a joke.
Dana Loesch said Democrats are trying to Al Capone the president, which Al Capone, a famously unfairly maligned, upstanding member of society.
Did a lot for the city of Chicago.
You're saying they're trying to put a organized crime boss in jail? The only part of that statement that isn't true is that the Democrats are not trying to put him in jail.
Right. It's such a sick reference that they're going to try to get him on something lesser than the huge crime he actually makes his career committing.
Right. My whole existence is criminality, but the only thing that might actually get me is paying off a porn star because I don't want to pay off Melania. That actually is very Capone-like.
It is. And I think Trump
got on tax evasion.
I think Trump walks around the Situation Room with a baseball bat.
No, he doesn't. He's not athletic enough for that.
You're right.
He looks even
More like
worse.
a wiffle ball bat.
Worse than he did 2 years ago. For God's sake, that's amazing.
And he is turning over the tables in the swamp.
In order to get rid of
Jesus mixed with.
The first thing we need to do to get rid of the swamp is make sure that people can't flip anymore.
Get the money changers out of the swamp.
No more picnics in the swamp.